Decoy blocks. Probably one of the most underused but extremely useful blocks within Space Engineers. To understand this block and utilize it effectively, we need to know its strengths and weaknesses, as well as bust some myths that surround this block. The first fact that I'm going to share with you is it doesn't require any power to operate. This means that these can be deployed by themselves without a power source and still function. Now, since decoy blocks are going to be focused by the enemy turrets, just how much fire can they take? We've got ourselves a standard Gatling gun turret here, and we're going to be engaging that decoy block over there on the right. We've also got a decoy block behind light armor and heavy armor. So let's engage that decoy block on the right and just see what sort of results we get. Now, from previous testing, we actually damage it around 11 to 12 shots. So I'm just going to put 5 shots into this to start with, but I'll put one in just to show you how much damage the actual turret's doing to start with. So you can see it drops it down to 95%, doing 5% damage, and it will vary depending on what components are inside it. So let's put another 9 shots in. Right, so there's another 9-10ish shots into it, and you can see how it drops us almost down to that level of non-functional. So 3 or 4 more shots, and now it's offline. So it's between probably about 10 and 12 shots this thing gets destroyed, most likely near the 12 spectrum. So you can see that has been disabled, and with the Gatling gun that fires rapidly, it's going to be destroyed with under a second. Now the next question is, if you protect it with light armor, is there even any point? Now, light armor, as we know, disintegrates extremely quickly, as you can see, probably under a second again, maybe 2 seconds at maximum, and then we have access to the decoy block and start damaging that. Now, heavy armor is a very different thing. The heavy armor will take a consistent amount of damage, and because of this, it takes around 10, 11 or 12 seconds, it varies a little bit, to actually penetrate behind them blocks and get to that decoy. So if you want to armor these decoy blocks, that I recommend that you do to keep them alive for longer and keep them protecting your ship and other vital components, stick them between heavy armor. Now, spacing them doesn't really make too much difference in my opinion, and to keep your designs looking very smooth, I don't recommend it having massive gaps within your design. Anyway, let's continue on testing. Now, this next part is going to be a little bit hard to explain, but I'll do my best. So in front of us we have a decoy type ship, and you can see we've got each of these decoy pods that detach. Now, as soon as these pods detach, they become a separate grid, and since they're a separate grid, the turrets over there on that ship will target the closest decoy block. But if we, for instance, I'll demonstrate this, we're going to actually get closer with our ship than the decoys, so we're going to have a little bit of deconnection here. This ship's a little bit in the test phases at the moment, but as we travel towards them 2 ships, I activate the decoy blocks. Let's just activate about this speed, for instance, and we'll see the actual pods disconnect here in a really nice pattern. So all of them have become separate grids now. So if I accelerate past them separate grids, oh god damn it, I've bloody broken my thruster off, but we're still traveling in front of the actual decoy pods, and since they're separate grids, we will still get targeted first by them ships because we're in front. So the proximity, so you can see how we're getting targeted, and then the pods behind us are getting targeted as well. So if you were going to use a shield of decoys to get past an enemy's defense, you want to come in behind the decoys. It's quite common sense really, but I wanted to just share that with you in case you do build a similar decoy system. But you can see the decoy pods are doing a great job of splitting their fire between the enemy ship. So before I show you on the same grid, I wanted just to quickly show you what would happen if we stayed behind the decoys and we decided to go into this situation once again. So we'll get a bit of an acceleration on, we'll get these decoys up to speed, and then so we're up to speed with the decoys, and we're just going to release the decoys. So the decoys will start to pop off over a certain period of time. So there we go, decoys are deploying in the crazy manner that they do, and you'll notice the decoy pods are now in front of the ship, and that's what we want to protect this missile. As we went in towards the target, you need your decoy cluster in front. So let's see if our little rocket survives a little bit longer in this cluster. So you can see we're not being targeted straight away. The cannon fire is being distracted towards them decoys, and since they are heavily armored, they're taking a lot of the fire. If we now boost in between this decoy field, we shouldn't take any damage at all until them decoys are being destroyed. So yes, we took a little bit of damage because we didn't have a decoy between us and that area. So if you did want to outrun a blockade of vessels, deploying some decoys like that could be a way through against much more powerful ships. But anyway, like I said before, let's try this all on a single grid. Now, there's many optimal designs that you can build, but this is one that you can do. Now, these are two separate pods. We saw something like this in Conrad's battleship, if you've seen that video, but basically we've got two pods either side connected by a heavy armor arm. Now, even if the arm gets taken out, the pod will continue to work as a decoy. The main important part for this particular project is keeping the central hull intact, and if it's a ship, if it's a missile, that is probably your priority. You want to keep that ship alive for as long as possible. So let's hop inside here and we'll power this guy up. So we've got one of Ryan's very, very powerful ships up there, and even a ship of that magnitude, that much firepower, if we go into it with decoy blocks like this, we are going to break past his defenses. I mean, all we've got is a few layers of heavy armor on each one of the decoy pods on either side of the missile, and the decoy pods are going to be really safe in there. From 10, 20 Gatling guns firing at once, we can easily break through the defense here. And if I just have my Gatling guns armed as we break through, you see we're taking no damage to the center of the missile. The only time we're going to take damage to that central hub is, there we go, we have impact, and if I would have detonated them warheads, we would have had a large critical explosion. So you can see the decoy pods are actually still doing the job right to this point, and there we go, we're finally taking out the game. So this leads me to the theory of thought of my jump drive weapon from a long time ago. If we can have enough decoy blocks, can we distract the turrets long enough to steal that ship, jump it to a different location? Let's try it out. So I made this absolute mess of a ship to test out if we could do the jump drive. Now, it should de-accelerate extremely quickly, so we should be able to get close by. Please don't ram my decoy block off. Yep, right. So we've got a load of decoy blocks on either side. We're going to test out if it's actually possible in what I'd call a semi-realistic situation, because we've got a ship with a lot of turrets trying to stop us from stealing that ship. We're soon going to see if the decoy blocks do any good at all, and when we get closer, we're going to activate the jump drive. So we'll activate the jump drive now. Jump drive will start to spin up if we... Come on, there we go, there we go. Okay, decoys are doing the job, but are they doing them well enough for us to actually steal this ship? Okay, landing gear, connect. Yes, we stole it! We in theory, we jumped the whole of the Oathkeeper that we know is a serious ship to a possible ambush location, and that was pretty damn cool if you get what just happened there. So we managed to jump that ship to a different location. We could have had an ambush set up on nearby asteroids, more ships in the area. So it's showing you just how powerful decoys are, because in the past you'd think that stealing someone's ship armed with this many turrets would be close to being impossible. Anyway, let's continue experimentation. So for you eagle-eyed viewers out there, you probably noticed that the GPS number didn't change. So in theory we didn't jump, even though we got the fancy animation and all that. I believe we experienced something to do with connecting two ships. It's a bit of a bug with the jump drive where you don't move at all. So we're going to try it one more time to see if we can solve the issue. What I learned from the previous attempt is that when we get closer, we need to slow down, we need to relax ourselves, reduce that speed, because them decoy blocks are going to do the work. So once we get around to 6, we're just going to change our angle here. We're going to engage that and just let our thrusters slow us down. I've got to believe in them decoy pods as much as I don't want to. Oh, we've not activated the jump drive correctly, have we? And we've got the connection. Okay, now we've got 8 seconds to jump. Them decoy pods need to do everything. We can't risk. So we've got 2 seconds, 1 second remaining, and yes, now the GPS coordinates change correctly, and Clang himself is taking over a little bit. But you can see how we could jump an enemy ship into an ambush position with something like this, or we could use the decoy pods to get close enough to deploy some sort of boarding pattern. So there's so many uses for these decoy pods. Why they're not used on bigger ships as well in combat by a lot of other people really does amaze me. Anyway, let's talk about that a bit further. So let's talk PvP. In a PvP situation, when you are fighting against an enemy ship, what are the best configurations for your decoys. And I really hope by this point you are considering adding decoys to your ships. If I've changed your mind about them, let me know in the comment section below, and if you're already using them, let me know how you prefer to use them as well. But as you can see, we have Conrad's side pods here. He's got one on each side, and notice how he's encased each one of these decoy blocks in this heavy armored shroud. Now what's great about this particular pod method is if the target is being shot from the front, it will split its fire between the two pods, causing it to evade the central hull, and Conrad's ship will remain intact for much longer. Now if we head over to Pavel's ship, he has got a little bit of a different idea in mind. He has kept his pods a little bit closer to the home, so if you're targeting the ship from the front, you may accidentally cut through some other parts of his ship to access them pods with your turret. So you can see the pods and the decoys are actually mounted here on the side, and he's got 3 on either side. So if we just cut into these segments, you'll see the decoy pods there, and they're not as well armored as Conrad's over there, so they won't last as long. In my personal opinion, I think the way to go if you're going to use decoys is have extended pods out from the ship. Does it look as sexy? That is totally up to you. But you can see there's 2 very different sort of design ideas regarding decoys with these 2 ships. Anyway, let me know what you think about the decoy blocks in the comment section below, and I will see you next time.